Today we're going to cover the first section of Unit 2 notes on English colonies in America. Our essential question for this section is what factors in English society encouraged North American colonization? So once again, we're going back to Europe to explore some of the laws and religions and movements that were happening in Europe that caused English settlers to come to America, and also what ideas and laws and traditions they brought with them. So in Unit 1, we were mostly focused on Spanish colonization. You learned about the conquistadors and the encomienda system, and the settling of New Spain, which we can see here. So this is North America, and you can see that Spain had already covered and claimed a large section of North America. Other European countries are going to begin fighting over this area up here, everything that has not been claimed and colonized yet by Spain. So, one of the main reasons for English exploration and colonization of the New World was competition to create their own empire in the New World. So the main three countries that are competing against Spain are England, France, and the Netherlands. So let's talk about some changes in English government and religion. Say hey to Dumpling. All right, so the Magna Carta is something that you have probably learned in a world history class before. This was signed in 1215, and it was the first document in the world to restrict the power of the king. So the Magna Carta stated that the king also had to follow the law. He couldn't do whatever he wanted to without consequences. And it also protects the rights of citizens in England. It gives them more say in the government. Now, this does not apply to every English citizen, but mostly the upper class and elites that will have a say, not your typical farmers and peasants and all of those people. I did not mean to do that. Hello. Oh, did I go away? I feel like I'm like see-through. That could be kind of distracting. Anyways, I'm distracting you guys right now. So, the Magna Carta was signed in 1215, and this is important because the English settlers that will be coming to the New World have this tradition of the king not having absolute power, of expecting some say in their government, and some of that power belonging to Parliament. England was also undergoing some religious changes, thanks to King Henry VIII. You've probably heard of King Henry VIII before. He was the one with 6 wives, and he split England off from the Catholic Church and established the Anglican Church of England so he could get a divorce from his wife. So, the official church in England becomes Protestant under King Henry VIII, and the Anglican Church was the official religion of England. This was during a time where there was no separation of church and state. If you were an English citizen, you were paying taxes and tithes to the official church, whether you agreed with it or not. It's important to keep in mind that the Anglican Church was not very different from the Catholic Church in its practices and the way it conducted church. King Henry just changed a few of the things that he didn't agree with, like the ability to get divorced. Here are the 6 wives of Henry VIII. Not very important to us in this class, but we do talk about it because of the religious changes that happened in England because of King Henry VIII's actions. As you can see, he had 2 of his wives beheaded. Not a very nice dude. Queen Elizabeth I was the queen from 1588 to 1603. She is considered one of the most important monarchs in English history, and some would argue that she was the greatest monarch of English history. So she was very powerful, and she is remembered for a couple of things. One was building England into a sea power. Under her reign, England developed the greatest navy in the world, and it would maintain that strong navy for the next 2 centuries. It was also during her reign that England defeated the Spanish Armada, which we learned is important because it allowed for the English to settle the North American coastline, what became the 13 colonies. Queen Elizabeth I also passed laws to support England's new religion, Protestantism. This is important because there was a lot of religious strife in England after King Henry VIII broke away, and there was a lot of people who had been Catholic that were not okay with the new Anglican Church, and then there was also a lot of Protestants who thought that the Anglican Church was still too Catholic. So there's a lot of conflict happening in England over religion, and those people who were being persecuted for their religion are going to flee England in search of religious freedom. And one of the places they end up, ding, 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 the New World. Oh, also, one of my favorite stories of world history is that the main reason King Henry VIII wanted a divorce was because his first wife was not giving him a male heir. She was having daughters instead of sons, and he wanted to produce a king. Wanted to have a legacy of great monarchs. Well, Queen Elizabeth I was King Henry VIII's daughter. So even though he didn't have a male heir the way that he wanted, he did produce one of the greatest monarchs in English history in his daughter, Queen Elizabeth. The Age of Enlightenment took place in Europe throughout the 1600s and 1700s. The Age of Enlightenment was defined by new ways of thinking about government and human rights. So this follows the Renaissance, the period of new ways of thinking about art and philosophy and literature, right? And that rebirth, that cultural rebirth. This is more focused on science and government, but it emphasized a search of knowledge, people seeking out new ideas. It's recognized as the birth of democratic ideals, government that is representative of the people. And also we begin to see science replace religion as far as answering like questions about the world. The Age of Enlightenment is important because these Enlightenment thinkers wrote books and essays about government and human rights that our founding fathers read and then used when declaring independence from Great Britain and then creating the new United States government. The Glorious Revolution took place in England in 1688. This was a bloodless coup, a seizure of power by William and Mary. They ascended to the throne and established a constitutional monarchy. So this is another step towards less power being given to the king and more of that power going to Parliament. And Parliament represents the people. So we see in England a slow shift of power going to the people. And finally, our last bit of English history for this lesson. The Glorious Revolution led to the English Bill of Rights that was written in 1689, the year afterwards. This further limited the power of the monarch and ensured the rights of Parliament and all Englishmen. So it included some things like trial by jury, free speech, no cruel and unusual punishment, things that you find in the U.S. Bill of Rights. Also, Parliament had the power to tax, according to the English Bill of Rights. Also, English common law was precedented on laws that are not written down, that were enforced based on custom or prior rulings by judges. And this system of English common law and these laws are going to be brought to the New World and eventually become part of um, America's judicial and legal system because of the English settlers who founded the United States.